Yad Aish Kedosh Dineh. This is Kelvin, and welcome to episode 41 of Res Metal Podcasts. On this episode, I was lucky enough to talk with Aaron Carey, the guitarist vocalist of the black metal band Nechochwen. If you didn't notice, I changed the opening song. I got permission to use the track Fire in the Sky from Tribal Kills, so I was always a big fan of that. Big fan of that EP that came out in 2020, and that song too, just super heavy and super groovy. Dig it. So on this episode, I got a chance to talk with Aaron Carey, and we talk about a lot of things. I mainly want to focus on the Nechochwen. Aaron Carey is also involved in a couple different projects. Some of them include Cold Fells, Infirmary, and Unwilling Flesh. And he's also a pretty accomplished solo acoustic guitarist. And then we mainly focus a majority of the interview on the new album that's coming out this spring. The new Nechochwen album is called Canal Black, and it's coming out through Bind Rune Recordings. The album doesn't have a release date yet, but I would just follow Nechochwen and Bind Rune Recordings and, just stay updated, because when that new album comes out, I'm pretty sure it's going to sell fast. The vinyl, anyway, because a lot of the Nechochwen stuff is hard to find on vinyl. We also talk about, kind of his background and how he stays connected with the culture and language of the Shawnee and Algonquin. That connection to the language and culture is really well represented on the album The Heart of Akamon, and that's Nechochwen's third album, and I would really, really highly recommend listening to that whole album, or if possible, get a hold of the physical CD, because there's the booklet that has the lyrics, the stories behind the lyrics, and the meaning of the languages that he uses. So really cool. All right, I'm gonna play a quick clip of the new song Canal Black, and then after the interview, I'll go ahead and play the entire track. So check it out. Whereabouts are you at right now?
I live in the very northern part of West Virginia. I'm about 40 miles west of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Oh gosh,
Pittsburgh's real close, and that storm just came up. I think it started somewhere, Texas or New Mexico or somewhere, and it's just huge. And we get these freezing rain, sleet things all night, and then a couple inches of snow on top of that. So it's been bad this winter for this stuff, and I keep getting classes canceled. So I've spent a lot of time teaching from home lately, and doing calls and things. So I'm used to this format, talking on the phone and Zoom and Google Duo and all these things. When the pandemic hit, all my students went online. So I can relate to what you do with your podcast, not in that way, but in my own way of, this technology stuff.
Yeah, with your work life and your professional life, yeah.
Absolutely,
you said
yeah.
Your teach. What do you teach, and where do you teach at?
I teach mainly guitar stuff. I teach at two studios, private lessons, and some at home as well for some local people. And then I teach at a small college, and I just started a program over at it's an alternative high school for at-risk youth, and it's turned out really great so far. And I think I'm going to be teaching some other classes, but we've been really scattered with the weather and with some of the staff having COVID. And it's been a mess getting it together, but it's a good group of people. You know, they don't pay a lot, but you're passionate about it. And a lot of these kids are from really kind of messed up situations. So it feels good to do it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, especially like you said, at-risk people, and especially that age population, high school. It's like, yeah, definitely gotta mold them into becoming adults. So that's really good that you're doing that.
Yeah, that's I think just society in general. There's something missing from a lot of people's lives, but I think it's awesome though that when I was in school, they didn't have anything like that, and there was a lot of people that could have they would have needed that, and it could have helped them. And I was in high school, 25, almost 30 years ago now. So these kids have something that addresses their issues. They're not just like, hey, you're a bad kid, go to the principal's office. They're like, you have autism. You have drug addiction in your family. You have this, you have that. No wonder you're having issues with your behavior, with depression, with suicidal tendencies, things like that. So I'm glad they're taking a more realistic approach to things 30 years later. It seems like they just lumped everybody together as bad kids before. So, it's a step in the right direction. We got a lot of work to do, though.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think ever since like junior high school, I've always just been kind of just like a quiet person, but I've always been like drawn to like listening to music, and especially like heavier music. And that just kind of stayed with me like all throughout school, all throughout high school. And then, I would move to like different places, go to college, and then, and had to like start fresh. But I always like, listen to music till like, that was like where I felt safe. And just, yeah, it still sticks with me today, even like now when I came out here to start working. It's just something I, hang on to. And
primarily black metal, death metal,
kind of all over the place. I mean, I got into metal when the new metal was really big, like in the early 2000s. That's when I went to high school.
Yeah.
And then
okay,
kind of from there, just slowly started getting into more like faster and more like heavier stuff. But I think I first got into like Slayer like my sophomore year, and then from there it kind of just was just like downhill from there. Started listening to more like death metal and black metal. And yeah, it's just been like a progression like that. And then I kind of just settled into like, primarily I listen to a lot of like, mostly just like death metal, I feel like, but, I'm pretty mindful of, the stuff I listen to. Like if it's like if the artwork has like a mutilated, like messed up person, I'm usually not going to listen to that. I'm like, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah, you could put me in that category too. I mean, that stuff is fun for like 2 seconds when you're younger, I guess. No offense that, how influential bands like Cannibal Corpse are. And, I listened to that stuff growing up, but it doesn't hold my attention very well at all. For anything, I want that to be my like channel to nature. Bands that are more, I don't know, a little more philosophical, I guess. Maybe you're saying the same thing too. I followed a similar path, I guess. Slayer was one of my first loves in metal. It went from like, I guess this is the story everybody tells, but Metallica and Iron Maiden to Slayer to Death and Pestilence and Carcass and such. And then I think it was like, I'm a bit older than you. First band I was in around here was in 1992. And it was like one of those kind of dark throne things where we had a couple demos that were straight up death metal, and we were listening to Dismember and Pungent Stench and Master and stuff like that. And then the drummer's like, hey, I got these tapes dubbed for me from, Emperor and Enslaved, like the Hordanes Land and, Wrath of the Tyrant and stuff, and Samael and Mortal. We started listening to all that stuff. And that was about 93 when that stuff started hitting, 94. And overnight we were like, let's be black metal. And first band around here that I know of. And we started talking to other bands and playing shows with the other bands. They say, hey, man, have you heard of this band Dying Fetus? Have you heard of, Internal Bleeding? Stuff like that. And all those bands are still around. It's pretty amazing that they're still kicking, But overall, I think my favorite stuff, I don't know, on any given day is either traditional Maiden, King Diamond, Merciful Fate type stuff, or something not too heavy or too obscure, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. I like a lot of these bands that's on the label we were on before. It's a label called Nordvis in northern Sweden. The band Siva, Leg. These bands are like, at least Siva is into Sami culture, which is their Aboriginal, roots in Arctic parts of Sweden, and there's a lot of crossover to American Indian culture, and really interesting things that we had in common. And so those are the bands that I put on. They're like a little more atmospheric, and if you haven't heard of those before, I could turn you on to some of those records. I think you'd enjoy them. Just to give you a background, man, like where I'm coming from with all this stuff, it's kind of weird. I didn't grow up on a reservation, Mm-hmm. I grew up hearing stories from my mom and my uncles about, grandma. Grandma would take us out and teach us roots and stuff, and she'd take us hunting, and she was like really good with a shotgun. She could shoot a pheasant, like not even looking, Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's up with that? And it's like, well, she's an Indian. Like, it's a really vague thing to tell a kid. I was like, what do you mean she's an Indian? Like, well, yeah, like, and over the years I've made sense of that, is that our family line goes back to a family called King and Jaeger. It's these two families. These are, very like white names given to these people. And I'm trying to condense like a whole history lesson into this conversation for this to make sense. But basically there was this point in time where Andrew Jackson says, get your ass out. You gotta move west of the Mississippi and get out of here. And some people are like, well, I'm married to this white person, or I have kids here. Like, I don't want to leave. There were some people that went west, and there's some people that stayed here and farmed and cut their hair and became Christian and such. So I started tracing back my ancestry from the time I was probably, 13, 14 and discovered metal at the same time. Mm-hmm. And just by chance, there was that guy I was talking about in my band, the drummer, is like, hey, you need to write this guy. Back then, there's no email. We wrote letters and traded tapes. And he's like, this guy plays in a band called Rochervor. I think maybe the first or one of the very first bands on Relapse Records. He's like, this guy plays drums. He's an Indian. You should write to him. You have some camaraderie, So I started writing to that guy, Chris Allen, or Andequa, as I know him. And he's been my mentor. I don't know if you'd say chief, we'd say Okima. And I learned so much from him and was able to trace back my heritage through a lot of books, a lot of documents, and with his help and stuff. It's not something that's handed to you on a plate here. And there's so many people that are like, oh yeah, I hear all these stories in my family, and But I am not like an enrolled member of any tribe. I just traced it back to Nechochwen, Shawnee, and Lenape in the 1800s. And I've found everything that I could possibly find, and I visited all those places and the grave sites and stuff. And it's been a lifelong journey connecting with it.
Awesome. Yeah, I have the CD booklet for the Heart of Akamon, and it's very the background, and how you were able to get your I guess the kind of like your background and research throughout this album. I was really blown away by that. I mean, I was flipping through it earlier today, but if people listening are more curious, I mean, I would recommend definitely picking up this the Heart of Akamon CD and kind of going through the booklet with the lyrics and with the stories behind the lyrics. Like it was really cool. I mean, I've never really had I listen to music like that. A lot of times it's just pretty straightforward lyrics with the thank you list, but that's really interesting. And you said that the tribal affiliation that you kind of talk about, and especially with the lyrics, you mentioned that, but is that mostly just Shawnee?
Yeah, this goes back to Shawnee and Lenape, and well, I mean, right in my immediate area, like my friend Bandaqua is Wyandotte and Miami and Shawnee, and the group that I grew up as part of was separate from my own family. This was a group of people in the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania called the Loyal Hannah Band. This is named for Loyal Hannah Creek that goes through a rocky gorge in the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania. It's very remote, basically a wilderness, just east of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And when I connected with that group, I found, various tribal ancestries, if that's a word, going way back for all of us. And, so it was kind of a amalgamation of groups. Just like here, right across the river from where I grew up was Mingo Town. Mingo wasn't really a tribe. It was Mingo's a corruption of Minqua, which means like mixed blood groups. So, there's strength in numbers, and when you find other people that are, trying to, sorry,
that's okay.
Distracted there for a second.
That's okay.
When you find other people that are doing the same thing, it's really good. And so I was part of that group for many years, and it's come and gone and come back again, and it's hard to keep together. There were some issues with drugs and alcohol. There were some issues with being busy with work and family and such, and we don't get together very often. And so Nechochwen is my main connection with keeping it part of my life,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm just I'm just really blown away by the amount of the detail and just the complexity of the music that you play, and then on top of that, there's the stories within the lyrics. It's just it's really cool. There's a couple bands out here around the Navajo area who do use the Navajo language and culture, and a lot of it is within the black metal style of music. There's been quite a few around here. Some of the people I spoke with doing my podcast, I think it's I kind of just kind of my own observation. It kind of it seems like I would say myself included. When we're growing up, we kind of get distracted with kind of like our with what we're taught from our family and our traditions, and especially
Hmm.
going through high school and college, and then like once we're all done with that, once we're kind of we get out of that lifestyle, that like superficial like kind of city atmosphere, and then we go back to that what we were taught, and we try to reconnect. I've been trying to do that more since I've been out of school. My school and training was just really intense, but I think having that connection kind of grew. My connection with, I guess, my culture kind of really grew, because I was going through such a strenuous like a school and training program that I needed something to keep me grounded. Um,
Sure.
yeah, and yeah, it's something that I really want to work on. Keep learning the language, and just keep staying in touch with like our traditional stories. And yeah, I mean it's there's plenty of people out here that are connected and are fluent speakers, and I think that was another thing too about me coming back out here. I really wanted to kind of get more in touch with that. Um,
Yeah, I think this podcast is probably part of that as well. I mean, that keeps you connected to other people. And yeah, like you were talking about language, it's been one of my biggest interests. And, it's a scattered thing that the language that I primarily look at and study is Shawnee. And I've read there's, maybe 200 speakers left or something. I don't know how accurate that is now, but a lot of my resources are historical documents and things, and lists that I got from this group that I was part of words that we used for various things in our gatherings. And the documents that I've had from other places are more recent. They're not the old mountain language, as I call it. Languages change over time, especially when people are displaced. And I have the book of Matthew from the Bible translated into Shawnee by Thomas Wildcat Alford, the grandson of Tecumseh. And you read the words in there, and it's like, these are way different than the words that I learned. At that time, there was a lot of like Muskogee, Creek influence, and the dialect of the words had changed. And I was like, I don't recognize most of this in here. And that's part of it too. It's like, wow, look how the influence on the language changed in just a few generations, not over 1,000 years, just a few generations. It's changed so much. And that's one of the things that fascinates me enough to where I think you could write music about this forever. You never run out of cool, interesting cultural things to inspire you. But one of my things, just for me personally, is if this dialect that I know words from really no longer is spoken or exists, like it might seem like futile, but I think preserving it is something that I'm really interested in. So that's where I'm coming from with that. Is I love the old mountain dialect, and people in my group have said that it flows like a song. The old language flows like a song when it's spoken properly, and I've never had the opportunity to get that good at the language. I wish I was, but so you have access, I'm sure, to the elders in your area that are fluent in that, and
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's awesome that you can do that. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources. I mean, there's even like movies that they've translated into the Navajo language, like I think Star Wars, and I think most recently like that Fistful of Dollars, the Clint Eastwood movie. Like you can buy DVDs like at the Navajo Nation Museum which is not too far from here. I mean, there's a lot of people are really really doing what they can to preserve the language. And there's even like a Rosetta Stone for Navajo, which I keep telling myself to pick up, and I still haven't picked up after all these years.
I did not know that. That's pretty amazing. I love to look at the language. Like I can't read it, but I like to look at it. I think I have like the Lord's Prayer in a bunch of different languages, and that's one of them. I don't know why everything always gets translated into like Christian stuff, but those are the examples I end up with, I guess.
Yeah. We have there's bookstores you can get, and they have the Bible in the Navajo language. But yeah, I really like the band. I really dig the bands around here. They're just a lot of really cool bands that no one's really heard of outside of here. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to dig into that this weekend. This is mostly Arizona, New Mexico.
Yeah. I've actually gotten lucky, and I've reached out to like non-native metal bands, just stuff that I'm like really into, and I'll just shoot them a message, and a lot of times I'll get a response. And I would say like the people I talk to is kind of like my playlist of what I really really like and I really want to dig into, as far as just like the music and the background of the music. So yeah, but mostly it's around here in this area.
Yeah, I'd say outside of Sacred Reich and Flotsam and Jetsam, I don't think I really know much about Arizona metal bands, and I haven't been out there since I think I went out there in '92 and '93, and I loved it. It's still snowing here. I wish I was out there today. It's probably much warmer than here, but yeah, that area is just unbelievably beautiful out there. Just it blew my mind. I'd never been west of Ohio, and 3 days later we're driving across the country, and I'm in Flagstaff, and yeah, we went through Phoenix.
Yeah.
My mom's cousins were in Phoenix at the time. I think they live in like closer to Cottonwood, Sedona now, and we went through Tuba City and Four Corners, Grand Canyon, and God, that was very, very important in my life, seeing something outside of the East,
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get back out there.
Oh yeah, it's all around here. Tuba City's like 2 hours away. Yeah, the weather's nice. It snowed a few days ago. That might have been the snowstorm that you talked about. That
it probably was the same system. Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right.
It's all gone. I mean, the snow's pretty much all gone, and it's just a little windy. But yeah, it is. You're right. It is kind of we're lucky to have pretty decent weather around this time of year.
Oh, just gorgeous views too. I've got pictures from back then, standing on the Four Corners in all the states at the same time, and I don't know. I remember going through. For some reason, I remember that hotel, Tuba City, and like eating at a Dairy Queen. I think, I don't know. This is when was that? 1992. I was out there, so yeah, I need to revisit it. It's been 30 years, so hopefully I'll get my son out there and get my girlfriend and her kids. We'll take a trip out there. They need that. I think it's important to go across the country or go somewhere really far away and see things in a different light than where you grew up.
There's a lot of cool like hiking trails too. Like even like where I live, like just a few miles from where I'm at. And like all over like Flagstaff, Sedona, and Monument Valley, and there's a lot of cool places to step foot on.
I'm all hiking. About it. Yeah, I remember going to Petrified Forest, and my stepdad was like, "Where's the trees?" We're looking for trees. It's like petrified rocks laying around, and it's just pre-internet where you can't research the place you're going beforehand. So I'd love to get back out there again. You got a beautiful area where you're from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's beautiful here too, in its own way. You know, we've got a lot of beautiful hiking around here, and West Virginia's the mountain state. They're not mountains like the Grand Tetons or the Himalayas or whatever, but we do have some really gorgeous hikes in this area, and then Southwest Pennsylvania as well. I love it there too. But before I forget too, thank you for the orders. I appreciate that a lot. And I wanted to ask you, do you listen to vinyl or collect vinyl at all?
Yeah, I got a pretty it's actually getting pretty crowded. I'm like, I tell myself I'm going to cut back, and then I see something, I'm like, all right, I got to get that. Like, yeah, I do collect vinyl records.
Well, I'm gonna send you some of ours with the package and some older CDs of different projects besides Nechochwen that we've done together. Same two of us, me and Andrew.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was just some people are like, it takes up too much space, or I don't have the equipment or something, and I totally get it. But the only one that I don't have, well, there's two that I don't have. Heart of Achamon's been sold out for like 5 years, and I keep telling them, you guys got to repress this. You know, people keep asking me. They like that record. They like that record probably the best of anything that we've put out, and it's been sold out on vinyl. Reorder it. It'll do well. And I don't know. They're like me. They procrastinate and they put stuff off until the last minute. And sometimes it comes back to bite you. But I don't have that split with Panopticon anymore. I sold out of that probably a month or two ago, or I'd send you one of those too, but I'm out of them. But I have the split with Bleg and the Oto record on black wax, and I'll send all that stuff out to you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
that's no, I thought you're more than welcome. I think you'll enjoy those. The Oto record, just FYI, is it's cut at 45 RPM.
Oh, yeah.
So if you put it on and it sounds really weird, you got to switch it to 45. I don't know why they did that.
Okay. Yeah. So, no, that's super generous. Thank you.
Oh no, man, my pleasure.
Yeah, I do have the Heart of Akamon, the CD, and then I also was able to get the Ancient Pulse CD a couple of weeks ago or a couple months ago. And I put in an order for the other album. I believe it's the second album.
Azimuth. I saw that. Yeah, that's mostly about mound builder culture in our area, which goes really far back. But it's interesting and sad all at the same time, because like my town has, I'm going to say 2,500 people in it. And at one time there were 200 mounds in my town, and there's like kind of none left. There's the remnants of one that has a house on it. And there's two just south of my town that I go to all the time as kind of a like prayer and connection spot. And I have to kind of sneak because they're private property. One's owned by a gas company, which is really fucked up. But the school that I'm teaching at now, though, the guy who's our principal, his first career was an archaeologist. And I started talking to him, and first thing he's like, well, I'm going to get on the phone with the state archaeologist so that we can go in there anytime you want. I'm like, wow, that's really cool, you know? He's like, yeah, I have a friend at that company. Nobody's going to care if you go down around there. So, like, there's ways around things, but you go up and down this Ohio River, and we have these mounds from Adena and Hopewell culture. Adena's, I don't know if you've studied mound builder culture,
no, I'm not too familiar. No, I'm actually not familiar at all.
Adena is like a made-up word that somebody studying it gave it, but it's basically like Proto-Cherokee culture from 3,000 to 2,500 years ago, when Cherokee ancestors were in this area and not down in Tennessee, North Carolina area. And Hopewell in this area built like geometric figures and earthen walls that were parallel. They would go for like 60 miles. And these shapes, octagons and stuff that you really can only see from the air. It's like, how did you know how to do that? And I find that stuff fascinating because a lot of it's still here in West Virginia and Ohio and Pennsylvania. And you can identify them by type and say, well, this group is Hopewell. These are ancestors of the Shawnee and Algonquin tribes around here.
You have a new album for Nechochwen coming out, right, this year? Kinawa
Yes.
Black?
Yeah, Kanawha Black, yeah.
Can you talk about that? Kind of is it going to be more along the lines of like Heart of Akamon as far as like the lyrical content and the musical content?
Yeah. Well, first off, some good news. I'm being told that we're supposed to have the records in at the end of March. Before I was told end of April, early May. A month earlier is way better than a month later. So that's going to be here before you know it. Obviously, it takes a while for vinyl now. With I don't know what the holdups are. I assume they're COVID related and supply related, but those should be in fairly soon. And as far as I know, it's going to be a vinyl, CD, and digital combo for like one low price. I don't know if they're going to make separate CDs of this too, but so far that's what we have coming here soon. The record is, it's kind of the opposite of the trajectory of a lot of bands, but I think that every record we come out with keeps getting heavier. Like the second record, Azimuths, when we started mixing in metal elements, was maybe 30% metal and 70% other stuff, ambient acoustic guitars, things like that. And Oto was half and half. Akamon obviously was much more metal content on that one. This is even more so. In fact, we're doing an acoustic set at Fire in the Mountains this summer in Wyoming, and having a hard time finding anything acoustic to play from that record. There's pieces here and there, but it's really more of a metal album from start to finish. There are some quieter passages in that. This is less, I would say, focused on specific history. Like, we had some stuff that was based off of battles and things. I guess there is a song about war on the new one, but it's a slightly different slant on it. Our thoughts with this one, Generations of War, from the new record, is what did it feel like being, say, 10, 11 years old in the frontier? Well, in my mind, the frontier here is the Ohio Valley, thrust into a battle for the first time with like a flintlock and being shot at 10, 11. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I just started playing guitar and I was in like 5th grade, going on the bus when I was that old. Imagine being in a ravine waiting to get shot and, going hand-to-hand combat and stuff. That happened all the time here during the time period that we're talking about. So it's a little more, I don't know, gruesome that way. It's a little more visceral than just a story of two forces clashing and battling and stuff. So that was a little different slant for this record. But overall, there's not a lot of, historical battle type of stuff. We do have a song. We have a song that's basically a legend that I heard about the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania that I was talking about, along the Youghiogheny River. Back in the 1750s, George Washington was like a young man that got hired to walk far distances, including into the town where I'm talking to you from, and measure things as a surveyor for the British. And the story that I heard, and I have found nothing to back this up other than I completely trust the person that told me this story. For whatever that's worth to anyone else, it's worth a lot to me. Apparently, Washington was taking a break along the Youghiogheny River, and a great horned serpent came out of the water and like jumped up and grabbed a deer off the side and just like devoured it and pulled it back down into the water. And I'm like thinking about that for days. Like, what did that look like? Like, this wasn't some Indian kid. This was like George Washington. If he saw that, wonder what he thought about that. And I just never let go of that image in my mind, and started writing this song called The Murky Deep. And that's just how it turned out, was like from the perspective of, you know, this young British American kid seeing something from the supernatural world, you know, from the spirit world come up out of this water and take down an animal in front of him. So that's a little different. We have a song about ramps, and I don't know if you're familiar with that term. It's an Appalachian specific. I'm not talking the thing that you walk up to get to a higher place. Ramps are like wild leeks, like onions, like big bulbous leeks that grow in Appalachia, and they come out in March. And usually when you're a kid, you don't like them that much because they're super pungent. They make your breath smell like onions for like 3-4 days. You probably think, why the hell are you writing a metal song about this? But they're very important because they're so high in vitamins and minerals that they're almost like a magical, like a tonic type of thing. You come out of winter and you don't have as much fresh food available to you because all the plants are, you know, dormant and covered with snow and such. And so you get a lot of meat to eat maybe from hunting, but these ramps come up in the spring and it's like a sign of hope. Like, oh man, you know, pretty soon these trees are going to be popping. There's going to be all kinds of stuff to gather. And those ramps make you feel better because it's nutrients that you haven't had all winter. So I wrote this really slow doom, like funeral doom paced song. This is, you know how Akamon ends? Kishela Makong. It's kind of a poem. It's kind of like that, but imagine if that poem was like Mournful Congregation did it, or you know, some like funeral doom band type of approach.
Yeah.
And so that's a little awesome. Different for us. We've never really done a song like that before, and it's kind of short and sweet. And I don't really consider songs to have a verse, chorus, bridge part like traditional songwriting. They can be a part that creates an atmosphere, and you know that can be its own thing. And we have a song. I guess I should have gone in order here. The one that I sent you the video for, and your listeners here, like this, really the only thing we've released so far from this is a video that I made, lyric video for Canal Black, the title track, and that song is our tribute to West Virginia. Kanawha is a really old word. I'm not 100% sure of the origin, but this goes back to ancient times. It might be a Yuki word or like a Monongahela word, almost back to like mound builder times. But it's a river that flows through Charleston, West Virginia, and it feeds into the Ohio River. And it's archaeologically and historically very significant. And the term Canal Black is actually, it's kind of a play on words. Canal Black is a type of flint that's been used for, 14,000 years, something like that, for tools and spear points, atlatl points, things like that. And so obviously there's that connection, that you can go through some of the creeks around here and still find points and, chunks of this canal black flint, among other types. But I took it as like this land here has, even from prehistoric times, been mysterious. Like there's a lot of stuff people have gone back and forth on. I grew up here and nobody lived in West Virginia in those times. It was just a hunting ground and nobody lived here. And that's bullshit. There's been people here for ever, like such a long time. And, but some of the things that happen here, like the battles and things that we've made songs about before along the frontier, and then things in prehistoric times as well that we don't know so much about, things that have been found from Adena and Hopewell cultures that are super, super mysterious and part of that great death cult that came up from the South 2,000 years ago or so, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a dark, mysterious land. And if you go into modern times, we have a lot of issues here, poverty and opioid addiction. And we're always like 47th, 48th, 49th in the country in things like infrastructure and, poverty and health and things like that. So it's kind of a play on words between the actual flint that it is, the actual, stone, mm-hmm. and a black cloud that's kind of always been over this area in this land. So that song's a tribute to our home place where we're from. We have a song called Visions, Dreams, and Signs. And this one is pretty personal. I'd say musically, it's probably the closest that I've gotten to my influences of bands like Emperor. Mm-hmm. Okay? Right. We're talking like early, I'm not comparing myself to them. They're like masters of that stuff. But Emperor, I like the atmosphere of bands like Woden's Throne and Winter Phillip and stuff like that. But this is a little closer to that like mid-90s, early 90s Emperor type of feel with our own spin on it. And the thought was like every time I get together with Andrew, that's the other half of this project, we might go hiking or something. We might, I don't know, just meet up somewhere in a park or do sweat or something. And every time there's something going on with a bird. I remember one time we were out and he said, "Hey, do hummingbirds have feet?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so, right?" And then this hummingbird comes over and just like lands right next to him. Whenever we're talking about it, it's like we get these weird things from birds. But the main thing is that we seem to get, every time somebody close to us passes away, we have a closer encounter with like an owl, with hawk when a good friend of ours died. And they're just like little personal things. And maybe you're more open to hearing those types of things when you're in that state of mind, when you lose someone close to you. But, the way I see it is, no, that was uncanny. That was not a coincidence. So I had to write a song about that. I'd lost a friend, unfortunately, to suicide. And that night, I had heard owls down by the river. I'm about 3 blocks back from the Ohio River where I live, and I never hear that when I'm sitting out on the porch, not in the town like this. I just thought that was like really, really something. And, we had another close friend of ours that passed just before COVID hit from cancer, and they had a bird encounter from that too. So visions, dreams, and signs are, when you get into the lyrics of it, it'll make more sense than any explanation I'm given here. But that one is really personal because I've had so many instances like that where, you're getting a message and you're trying to not be unsettled by that, to, try to understand what it means.
Yeah, no,
Um,
yeah, that's interesting. You brought that up because I mean, one of the traditions that hearing growing up is, yeah, definitely like having an encounter with an owl was usually had like a is usually like a bad omen, or there's like it could be death, or it could be something negative was in that person's like near future. So that's or recent past. So yeah, that's one of the traditional like teachings that that we grew up around here in the Navajo area. So yeah, no, that's really I guess really coincidental that you've had those encounters, and it definitely does fall in line with our teachings.
yeah, yeah, I think I had learned very similar things growing up as well. And um, you get so wrapped up, or at least me, I get wrapped up in life and I forget about that stuff. And it's almost like, hey, all this clutter that you're looking at every day, there's like really important things that you need to pay attention to. And sometimes they have to get in your face for you to recognize it. Instead of more subtle signs. But I think that song is, an opportunity to reflect on that. And for me to, every time I put that on, I'm reminded, like, you need to listen.
Yeah.
You need to listen sometimes, we have a song on there. There's only seven. There's 7 tracks. It's, I think, 41 minutes. I don't like really long albums, which when you get that Azimuth CD, you'll say, wait a minute, this is like an hour long. But that was an exception. If I could go back in time, I probably would have, organized that a little differently, maybe a 40-minute album and a 20-minute EP or something. But, it is still, I am proud of it and everything. But I like to have one record where side A and side B are balanced, so nothing sounds crappy at the end of the side. You know what I mean? Too many grooves packed close together. So about 21 minutes a side is what I try to shoot for. I don't let it dictate the music or anything, but that's kind of in the back of my mind when we're making records. And this song, Across the Divide, is possibly my favorite song that we've ever done. It's not real concrete or historical lyrically. It's more poetic and personal and pretty simple. And I think something that anyone from any background could relate to. It's basically like that. I guess you could say, like, we try to travel a straight path in life, and we get knocked off of it. We get up and down throughout life, and we want to keep like a straightened path. And we did a song about that before, the Gissus Makana, which became The Red Road on the split with Panopticon. So I thought a little bit further on that, and maybe just like I'm out on a quest or something through the woods to find myself again or something, or maybe it's just an overnight hike for fun. But I pictured this guy going in the wintertime across this like really difficult landscape with a lot of snow and stuff, and running out of food, and just like really like, why am I doing this? Why am I pushing my body to do this? Like, I wish I had never gone, and second guessing yourself. And then you're trying to get warm, and then you build a fire, and in the night you kind of rest up, and in the morning the sun comes up, and it's like, oh, okay, I remember why I was on this path. Like, one of the lines in there is, the snow in the valley entrances your eye. You see this like path down below of like, wow, that's so beautiful, even though I'm kind of cold and uncomfortable. I'm halfway there. Let's go. The next half of this is going to be a really, really enjoyable, like, productive experience. And I think that's a metaphor for life, because I'm like in middle age now, and I'm trying to like deal with that. And I'm like, I'm a lot older than I used to be. What's the next half of my life going to be like? So to me, that song's kind of a metaphor for that. Like, it can be, shitty and I can complain about it and feel, down all the time or whatever, like I'm old, this or that, or I can be like, no, I'm going to embrace every experience that I can. And this is, the downward slope, the second half of life.
Yeah.
So that midpoint, I say is, you're trying to get across the divide, like the continental divide, the this or that, or you could like look on the horizon at the ocean or the skyline. The land is one part of that divide, the sky is the next. And that's kind of like the division between life and whatever comes after life, So I guess we're kind of reflective. You would think that's pretty normal to work on an album that long. You're going to get kind of introspective about things, and we did.
Wow. Yeah, no, I can't wait to hear it. I'm definitely gonna, place my order once that album gets available for pre-sale. So yeah, that's really cool. I'm really looking forward to that.
It's my favorite so far, and I know everybody says that every time they put a new one out. I know Nechochwen always says that every time Iron Maiden puts out, this is the best album we've ever done. And it's cliche, but, I do honestly feel that. And so does the two guys from the label, Marty Ritkinen and Austin Lunn. And Andrew, the other half of this project, we all four unanimously feel that it's the best thing that we've done so far.
Nice.
So,
Thanks for giving me that kind of like that walkthrough of the new album. I hope people listening check it out. Hopefully they can like pick up the physical copy. But I just hope people check it out.
It'll be streaming too, I'm sure. They're talking about, I don't know who's gonna stream it. Like bands often debut their album through, Decibel or No Clean Singing or whatever. I'm sure it'll be premiered through something like that, but we don't have a concrete release date yet. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that will be very soon. We need to figure that out. I'm not the best with the PR and the business end of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll see how they do.
Okay. Yeah. Looking forward to it. And then just kind of a couple of more things. What other bands or what other projects are you a part of besides Nechochwen?
Well, right now that's it. And we haven't been very active ourselves lately. Andrew has his own band called Iron Flame, and they're quite prolific. And as soon as the opportunity arises, I think they're going to tour Europe again. And I don't know, maybe they'll do a U.S. tour as well. They were on a roll for a while, and then COVID shut everything down. He has a band called Brimstone Coven. It's more of like, not to pigeonhole it, but kind of 70s doom. Kind of like if you put Black Sabbath and Cream into a blender. And they're on Ripple Music. They were on Metal Blade for a while. And really, really great stuff. And then he's the front man for a band called Icarus Witch. It's more of traditional heavy metal, and they've been around for quite a while. They have quite a legacy as well. We had some projects over the years that were kind of one-offs. Infirmary was one that's like my death metal stuff. And I just don't write in that style very, very often anymore. And we had another band called Unwilling Flesh that was kind of early Swedish dismember type of stuff, and that was just one album. And we've done some folky type stuff for Forest of the Soul. But other than that, I'll do a guest spot here and there for different bands. But at the current moment, Nechochwen is my only like musical outlet that makes records. I do my own thing around here locally for, professionally. I play gigs. It's basically classical and acoustic guitar, And that could be anything from actual classical music and jazz to arrangements of rock songs or country songs or whatever it is. I just do a variety for catered dinners. Or well, I don't say catered. We have like a farm to table type of thing in town here where we do dinners every week, and it's a lot of the same people each week that come to it. And we have a chef that comes down from Pittsburgh, and he explains the meal, like what all's in it, and we incorporate food from local farmers and as much organic stuff as they can. And so I have a steady gig where I play this music on my own, just classical and acoustic guitar, and I'm not playing in any like actual live metal bands or anything anymore. Maybe someday, but right now that's what I'm doing. And yeah, I need to get active with writing some more music for Nechochwen as well. I've kind of let my brain take a little break after this, after that split. Yeah. Well, the two splits, Panopticon and Bleg, and then Canal Black. Yeah. But usually this is pretty normal. I kind of like take a little breather after we do an album, because I don't want to just spit something out. This stuff takes me a while to like, process it, like what's worth writing about. And I don't want anything to ever sound like phoned in or not genuine or something, so it takes us a little while, but I hope it won't take us like another 7 years to do a record.
I need to. One quick question. So I found an interview with you and your counterpart Andrew on the Bine YouTube channel. There was talk of two albums, so like the heavy album. This is for like newer releases, a heavy album, and then a more like mellow, like acoustic album. Was that still kind of in the works, or did anything? Is that something
Man,
you and Andrew are still doing?
You do your homework. Wow, that's impressive that you even knew that. I have material that is of an acoustic nature that eventually will see release, but it's actually being used for another project right now that I'm contractually not supposed to talk to media sources about. Because it's not an official thing, but when it is made, it's going to be very cool, and you're going to like it. It's not purely in the musical genre. It's in another genre. That's all I can say. It's being used for something, but not a CD that you go buy. It's a collaboration with other artists that I respect, and are probably more well-known than I am.
Okay.
So sorry to be so vague.
No, that's okay.
We'll have another conversation off the record about that. But I'm like contractually not allowed to say anything, unfortunately, which sounds really lame. But I will. Yeah, I'll share that with you sometime.
Okay.
And that stuff will see the light of day, I think, in physical form, but probably not as soon as I had thought. And that's why that hasn't happened yet, is because of this other project going on. So it's still something that I want to do anyway. I love how Algonquian, I love the feel of that. It's listening back now, it feels very primitive and very, I don't know how else to explain it, except like if you think of the first Black Sabbath album, it was recorded in a day. Like I recorded that album really quickly, and I didn't even know what it was going to be at the time. I just knew that I wanted to break from metal, and I wanted to but I wanted to create art that was based off of local stories and events, and something that was close to my heart, but I didn't really know how to write books about it. I just said, what am I going to do with these things? How do I express it? and it came out through instrumental, classical, and acoustic pieces,
Okay.
which made sense, at the time. But I don't know if I could do 10 albums of that. But I think another one should exist, and I just need to compile some more ideas for that to get that together. But yeah, that was the plan for a long time before this, before this other thing came along with that material. So we'll see. Sorry to be so vague
No, it's
about
okay.
that.
Yeah. No, I just had to ask. When I do these podcasts, I try to dig into as much like interviews or just things that other people can find online, and I try to avoid those. If there's like an interview, like for example that interview you had on the Bindrune channel, like that one was a really good like walkthrough of all the albums like in sequential order. So I kind of picked some things out of there that I wanted to ask, but we did kind of go into like our backgrounds a little more, which I feel like that during that interview that wasn't really mentioned. So I'm really glad we got a chance to touch on our backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember it, every detail of it. It's been a while since we did that, and I don't know if I ever like went back and watched it or anything after we talked on there. That channel is like my TV show. They just did one on King Diamond discography the other day, and the Maiden discography, and it's a really entertaining show on there. That heavy metallurgy.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching it, and yeah,
I've caught a couple of those. Those are really good.
yeah. Maybe I'll get back on there again. You should do something like that too on YouTube.
Yeah, I just
know.
it's really big. I don't know. It's kind of hard, like with like producing video content. I feel like I'm not good at like the editing. I feel like the audio editing is pretty easy. But I don't know. I'd never done any kind of like video projects, but I yeah, that's something I should look into. But yeah, I've been a fan of podcasts for like, I don't know, for like 10 or 12 years now, and I've pretty much just been doing similar, like doing something similar to what other like metal podcasts do, but I mainly just kind of go into the local area around here with a lot of the different local bands and local people involved with the metal scene around here on the Navajo reservation.
Well, now that I think about it, a lot of the time when I'm listening to those broadcasts that are video on YouTube, I put my phone in my pocket and I'm like washing the dishes or cutting the grass or, whatever, cleaning, tasks. I'm not like really watching it. I'm just listening to what they're saying. So, you made a good point. A podcast is fine with me. It just seems like a lot of people are doing the videos. So, are these up on YouTube as well?
I'm slowly getting onto YouTube. I've uploaded the last two on YouTube. I really need to kind of go back into my older interviews and just try to get all of them just up on there. But that's one of my things on my to-do list. But I think this one I'll definitely make a YouTube of this interview. But I primarily do like Apple, like iTunes, Spotify,
Okay.
and then like SoundCloud, like the more popular ones. And then I'm gonna try to get more of my stuff on YouTube. It's just another way to reach out. Yeah, another way to reach out and get the. It's more so. It's mostly just like the people I'm talking to that I really want to get more people exposed to, and especially around here, I feel like there's just a really cool like thriving scene around here. It's just that people around here know about the bands, but once you start going like outside of like Arizona, New Mexico, there's not a whole lot of like listeners. So that was just something I really wanted to achieve, is just try to like kind of push this the scene around here to places that people wouldn't normally come across. So my ultimate, like, I guess one of the things that I kind of think about is that I really hope that one of the bands around here on the reservation gets on like a well-known metal label. Like, that'd be so cool. I really like hope one of these bands kind of gets that recognition. Yeah, a lot of the bands here, they get really, I feel like they get a lot of momentum, and then, life starts to happen, and then they kind of slow down with their music. But, there's always younger artists, younger musicians that are, coming in right after to kind of pick up on that momentum. And so,
yeah, well, that's the plight of the metal band to begin with. That it's from the dawn of time, or since the beginning of the genre, that's happened to metal bands. I mean, my area is no exception. It's exactly like that. And it could be you run out of ideas. It could be two of the guys are fighting over something, or money, or whatever it is. There's always a challenge to keeping things together, and that's why it amazes me that there's bands out there that have been together for like 35, 40 years. I don't know how they do it. And not just the ones where it's one guy hiring a bunch of new people, but, bands where they have essentially the same lineup or a similar lineup, like Iron Maiden, Metallica.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. Just life happens, and then, things change, the music style changes, and yeah, eventually, there's just, life just kind of, takes over. So, all right. I think I'm pretty much, I think those are all my questions. I'm going to stop the recorder 1 second. That was my talk with Aaron Carey of Nechochwen. Again, really thankful for him to take the time to talk with me about himself and his music. One thing that kind of stood out about that talk was just, how connected we are to our languages and our culture. I feel like for Aaron, the connection is, done through his music, and, he conducts, his own research, and, talks with people about what he's singing about and what he's writing about. And then, for, out here in the Navajo area, I feel like we're lucky to have a lot of people who still are fluent, and there's a lot of just a lot of ways that, the language is still, kept alive, with like the KTNN radio and the different sources of media. There's textbooks, there's classes, there's, online resources. So, really just a really interesting, there's like a disparity, I feel like out there, the languages is so scarce. Over here, it's so vast and rich. But, yeah, anyway, that was just something I was thinking about when I was editing. But yeah, be sure to follow Nechochwen and Bind Rune Recordings on social media. Be sure to, stream Nechochwen or pick up the physical albums, and be on the lookout for the new album, Canal Black, which should be coming out this spring. I'm going to go ahead and play that full song that I played earlier. It's the title song off the album Canal Black. All right, check it out. And thank you, for listening.
It's